Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. So, just a very quick intro from me. So, we're running this webinar for about 60 minutes. You can submit your questions to Andy and Dave at any time in the QA panel, and we'll come to those as we go along. We are recording the session, so that will be shared back with you in the next couple of days. And without further ado, I am going to hand over to Andrew Guy and Dave Clough from FD Intelligence.
Thank you very much, Steph. So welcome everyone and good morning. My name is Andrew Guy. I'm the CEO of FD Intelligence. Bit of background on myself. I've been within the accountancy sector now for 25 plus years, both as CIO and now CEO. So we've been running FD Intelligence now for just over 3 years, and we've got a real laser focus on accountancy, doing everything around intelligent automation. We'll show you what we've done throughout this presentation. So, Dave, I'll hand over to you.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Dave Clough. I'm the Customer Success Director at FD Intelligence. Some of you may know me from my previous life. I was the COO at Wolters Kluwer, and prior to that, Solution 6 and MYOB. So always been involved in technology for accountants. I'm very excited to be presenting today really what is going to be a revolution in tax processing, and we're solving business problems through intelligent automation that have existed for many, many years. It's great to be working again with Wolters Kluwer in this partnership for the intelligent automation around personal tax, and that's what we're going to be taking you through this morning.
Okay, so the agenda for today is we're going to spend a little bit more about FD Intelligence and look at some of the benefits around intelligent automation, so robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, and then really go and deep dive into the personal tax workflow and give you a demonstration of the new solution. As Steph said, please do ask questions as we go through, and we'll take the option just to pause and answer them as we come through. So, a bit more about us. As we said, we've got a lot of knowledge within the industry. Dave and I have been within accountancy for the last 25 plus years, and we've got a really important strategic partnership with obviously Wolters Kluwer, but also UiPath. So UiPath are the global leader in this technology space. So they've been at the top right quadrant of Gartner for the last 5 years. And we're now really pleased to be part of both their EMEA advisory board, but also one of their top 10 partners in the UK. And it's going really well. And yeah, we're really just delighted to be showing this and demonstrating this product today. So, what actually is, what is it we're talking about? We're really talking about systems using robotic process automation and artificial intelligence to take away the repetitive, mundane work that no one really actually wants to be doing. Yeah. So the type of information that we're bringing in. So if you think about it from a tax perspective, yeah, all that ingestion of source information from the likes of P11Ds, P60s, bank interest, yeah, capturing that information, categorizing it, and then being able to put that directly into the CCH system. And we'll show you demonstrations of how that all works. So if you think about, you've now got a capacity within your organization to work 24 hours a day and take care of all these steps so that you can really focus on the value add work, so the tax planning, the review work, and potentially going out to win more customers, so business development. So just go dive a little bit deeper here. We like to think of this as the see, think, and do. So you can see the automation layer at the bottom. We work across not just these software providers, but any software platform. So as we've mentioned, we've already got the strategic partnership with CCH, but we can work across any document management system. So we've already integrated with mFiles, iManage, bespoke document management systems, SharePoint, CCH document management system, Yeah, and this is not limited to just these. All we need is either the API integration, or we can work at the front end. So it's really robust, and we can then use that to build further automations. So if we take it to the C, using sort of intelligent automation, we can visualize exactly what is on your screen. So that might be, yeah, extracting information from an Excel document, reading an email, understanding which screen you're in within CCH, and then being able to do something with it. These software robots have been pre-programmed to then go and facilitate the tasks that a person would normally do. And that's really where the AI aspect comes in, because we program it in a way that it evolves and self-learns. So if we need to correct it partway through the workflow, then it will learn for next time. And then we like to think of this as RPA is the arms and legs doing the work, lifting and shifting of information from A to B, but the AI being the brain at the center that's controlling it. So a really fundamental part, especially within the tax product that we've created, is the ability to introduce the human in the loop. So we've worked with three large firms to develop this product. And the feedback we had right at the beginning was, we need to verify that information before it goes into CCH. We don't want it just to go directly from source document into the tax return. So what we did was we've created this thing called Action Center, and this is the user interface for someone to go in. So one of your tax advisors, or potentially the administrative function, goes and checks and validates the information before it then gets populated within the core system of CCH. So that was a fundamental part, and the feedback has been great and very easy to use. Web focus can be accessed on mobile devices, on your desktop, or anywhere. And that allows you to have that control before any information gets put into the system. So when you're delivering intelligent automation, now you've got that capacity. It's not just 7.5 hours a day of a worker. You've now got this virtual worker who has capacity for 24 hours in a day. And you now have to think about, actually, when should you have it working at full speed, returning back the information almost immediately, and when can you pass it on other tasks to actually carry on from 6 p.m. at night till 6 a.m. in the morning. So we've got bots currently that do supplier statement reconciliations, bank statement reconciliations, fixed run payrolls, all running in the evening, and any exceptions get picked up in the morning by one of your accountants. So it's a different way of operating. And actually, with this tax product, the firms we're working with just now are starting to think about operationally how they can restructure their tax team. So potentially having that central hub for the initial processing phase, and then handing out the more complex information to tax advisors. So just taking a step back, so outside of the tax product, intelligent automation can deliver really significant benefits to businesses. Projects typically take between a month for a simple process to get developed, 2 months for medium complexity, 3 months to get sort of more the high complex areas. And therefore, we're getting returns on investment between 3 and 9 months. Yeah, so really rapid returns on investment from the solutions that we're delivering. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is make your workforce happier, delivering more accurate quality services to your customers, so your customer improvement plan is in place. But really importantly, your staff are happier at their work because they're now having to deal with the areas that they've been trained to do. And we're now seeing quite a lot of our clients using intelligent automation as a talent attraction, unique selling point to go, actually, you come and join our firm, and yeah, you're going to be doing the more complex work, the stuff that you enjoy doing, and then all the mundane work can get dealt with AI and robotics. So a really exciting space. We've delivered some fantastic solutions to our clients. Yeah, and we'll get into the tax product now for yourself. So Dave, I'll hand over to you now.
Thanks, Andy. So, as Andy said, we're going to focus on our partnership with CCH around personal tax. But just a couple of general comments. If we just think about the drivers behind the potential of intelligent automation in accountancy, I think they're pretty much fourfold, and they're sort of outlined down the bottom of the slide in the blue area. Compliance work, as we're aware, by its nature, is repetitive. You've got payroll, tax returns, accounts, audit, insolvency, all running across various cycles of weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, etc. And around all of those cycles, at your practices, you've developed many processes which have been designed to provide consistency. They're all about minimizing risk and improving productivity. But when you observe your team in action, they also contain lots and lots of keyboard input and lots of wait time, and very much multiple systems. Even for tax, you're often in Excel, you're in document management systems, you're in timesheets, you're in portals, you're in the revenue website, etc. And all of that isn't an efficient use of your time. And thirdly, the systems that you're using, the CCH Personal Tax system, has been built around compliance and minimizing risk and making sure it's right. It's not necessarily had the forefront of automation. So we're coming in at a completely different angle with one focus, and that's purely around saving you time and giving you the ability to perhaps move time is a phrase we like to use. So move it from the mundane and the repetitive into the more strategic areas that we've probably been talking about for many, many years. And then finally, every practice, I think, not necessarily just in the UK, but across the globe at the moment, is really suffering from recruitment and staff retention. It's only got worse in this post-COVID age with a much more transient workforce. And what we're finding through our automation projects over the last 3 years is we're having a really positive impact on those softer areas in terms of employee satisfaction and the ability to attract talent into your business as opposed to someone else's practice, by really promoting the fact that the robots or the virtual workers that you use at your particular business will be doing all of the lifting and shifting and the really mundane work. So if we think about potential areas in the top half of that slide, Andy's mentioned some of those, and we're working across all those areas, but we're now going to focus exclusively on the tax compliance side. So if we just go to the next screen, Andy. What we like to do with our robots and what the businesses who implement them like to do is they basically give the robot a persona, because for all intents and purposes, they become a member of the team. So for personal tax, we've created Peter, who's our new virtual worker within the accounting services team. And Peter's role is the junior tax assistant. So that's what I want you to view this robot as, that we're going to see in action in a moment. So he's a junior tax assistant working in the personal tax department. And Peter's role is very much around data collection and the processing of the client data into the tax return. And the good news is Peter has got many, many years experience working within tax departments, and he's a quick learner and very conscientious. And all of that experience has come about through the last 18 months, where Peter has been working with three large firms, a couple of top 20 firms and a specialist tax supplier. And Peter has been literally posting returns for 2022 and learning all about the various types of tax documents and the data that's needed to go and how to post that data into CCH Personal Tax. So let's take a look at what the personal tax workflow would look like. But just before we do that, I think we've got a poll which we'd just like you to complete, which is just asking you, what percentage of your time is taken up by collating all of these documents and emails and data and then entering them into the tax return. I'll just give you a few small seconds to complete that. But typically, what we are seeing, and this survey is reflecting that, is it's often more than 50%, and some firms it's more than 75% and more than 75%. So a lot of manual data entry going on and scraping data and posting that data. And what we don't know is also how accurate that data is going into the tax return. And one thing that Andy mentioned earlier on one of the slides that Peter will give you is guaranteed accuracy. Peter will not make mistakes. He doesn't get tired. He's happy doing the same thing day in, day out, even in January when he's under extreme pressure and posting lots and lots of similar data into lots and lots of different clients. Okay, so thanks for completing that. What we'll go back to now is on the slides. I'm just going to walk you through how Peter interacts with your workflow. So hopefully you can see the slide again. So what we're going to walk through here is the various steps and interaction that Peter is working with you. So if we start off looking at the source documents. So your source documents are coming in to the practice probably from various places. I imagine through emails, through portals, perhaps through the post, and you have a scanning routine. So Peter can work with all those different sources. And he'll be reviewing or continually polling what's going on. And as soon as he identifies some data that's required for the tax return, he will start to download that document. So in the second swim lane there, we've got RPA, so the robotic process information automation. So Peter is going to download the documents into a secure processing area. And it doesn't matter whether these documents are PDFs, images, emails, or whatever. They can be literally any digitized format. Towards the end of this presentation, we'll actually look at how Peter can deal potentially with handwriting as well that may come in that's been digitized. And the next step, the third swim lane there, where we've got AI, the document classification piece, this is where the magic really starts to happen. And this is where Peter will take all those documents and break them up and identify them into the various CCH classifications of self-employment, investment income, pensions, foreign dividends, etc., etc. So he's doing that whole classification piece, and as part of that classification piece, Peter will build you a tax working paper. So all of those documents will go in to an indexed PDF, and that document will build up during the course of the tax year as and when more documents are put in to the various sources. So that's the document classification piece, the labeling of the documents. And then the second piece of magic that Peter performs is from those documents extracting all of the data, both the values and the text that is required for the purposes of the tax return. So he'll trawl through each document, and he's been trained on even things like massive portfolio documents from private banks. So it could be like a 100-page document that Peter will work his way through, and he will try and find the tax summary within that document, and again extract all of the data from the 3 or 4 pages in that tax summary. And then, as Andy said, the next step on the 4th swim lane there, where we involve the accountant or the tax advisor on the exception handling, is Peter has grabbed all this data, but we don't necessarily trust Peter at this stage, so we don't want Peter to post the data automatically into CCH Personal Tax. We're going to introduce this human in the loop. So this is where your tax advisors start working alongside Peter. So Peter will present all of that extracted data and that classified information into a workflow. We call it the action center. And that's where your team of tax advisors will be sitting. And they get the opportunity to review everything that Peter has extracted from those documents. And they get the option to edit it if necessary, or submit it, or validate and submit it ready for the tax return. So just when you sort of picture Peter, as we said earlier, he's a junior tax person. We've given you a lot of background about Peter, but you probably don't trust him on day one, just like a new junior coming into your practice. And that's why through this exception handling and human in the loop, you're currently reviewing everything. But the 3 firms that we've worked with to bring this to market are beginning now to turn the dial down, and they don't want necessarily to review every piece of information. So as your confidence grows with Peter, you can allow data to flow directly into the tax return if it meets a certain confidence level, and we'll see that in action in a moment. So that's the exception handling. That's the human in the loop that Andy talked about earlier. Then, once the tax advisor has agreed that the data is correct and validated, Peter does some further validation and cross-checking. So he does some basic analytical review, for example. So he will check for duplicates because, again, looking at practical examples, it wouldn't be uncommon, perhaps, for the client to send you in a document at the start of the year, and then he sends that same document in 6 months later. Although it's gone into the workflow, Peter will identify that as a duplicate and push it back to the tax advisor for review and validation. And then once Peter's done his exception testing, he then opens up CCH Personal Tax, which is that bottom swim lane there, and inputs the data into the tax return. So that's putting all the information into CCH Personal Tax, and at the same time saving all of the documents down to your document management system, be it CCH document management system, or as we talked about earlier, it could be a third-party document management system too. And then we're back to the human in the loop, which will be the standard process currently within your practice. You've got the option to do, or ability to review the return in CCH. So that would be the tax advisor, making sure everything's okay. And then the return can be filed either by Peter or by the tax advisor. So that's how we envisage the end-to-end workflow looking, with Peter being a key part of your tax department. So if we know.
Okay, just before we move on, I've got a question from Mary. So how does Peter deal with an investment portfolio summary that's held jointly with a husband and wife?
Do you want to take that one, Andy, or do you want me to?
Yeah, that's fine. So what we've done, certainly for bank interest and a lot of the joint accounts, is through the Action Centre, we determine the split and say, actually, this should be split between a couple, and then we select the relevant codes for it to go into. But we do push it back to the tax advisor to make that decision through the Action Centre, because there might be a different decision. it's one of these decisions actually that we are passing back to accountants to say, how do you normally deal with this? So we can almost adapt it to the way that a firm will work. Second question from James, what is the situation if we don't use a document management system listed and use network drives and SharePoint? Ideal. That works almost straight out the box. That if you're just using native folders within Windows, that works perfectly well. And as I said at the beginning, we've already configured SharePoint for this. We'll take one more question before we get into the demo. So what if Peter gets smart enough and decides to go on strike and demands a pay rise for being overworked and underpaid? If you can answer that. No.
It's a great question. I do like that one.
So we'll get into a demo now.
So what we're going to do is bring that workflow we've just gone through to life, and we can see Peter in action. And this, I've got to really emphasize this. This is the only time you will see Peter in action. So just get up on the screen. So what Peter is doing here is we've got a whole string of documents that have come in from one client. So the client has helpfully sort of scanned and concatenated all of the documents together. So they're coming through one PDF, which generally is quite nice. But for Peter, it's not ideal because the first thing he's going to have to do is break all those documents up for classification purposes. So just like you and me, he will eyeball the documents, understand where all the page breaks are, and then classify the documents into the various areas. And you can see here on the left-hand side, you've got your indexed PDF or bookmarked PDF that Peter has created straight off. And this document will be added to. There will be unclassified documents in there as well, because there are going to be things that perhaps have gone in there by mistake or something that Peter hasn't come across before. And that would go to the Action Centre for Peter's attention. And then we're in the Action Centre that your tax advisors will be sitting in on a daily basis. And just a quick review of the screen. On the right-hand pane, you've got the original source document. And then in the middle pane of the screen, you have the values and text that have been drawn for those documents that are going to go into Personal Tax in a moment. And then on the left-hand pane is the workflow for the tax advisor. So all the documents for his attention. And you can see on the right-hand side, if we look at those source documents, they are color coded on the extract. So every piece of data that's coming out is cross-referenced to that middle pane through colors as well as text. So it's very obvious where the data has come from. So it makes it easy to check. And there is an opportunity or a discussion around whether you want a tax person doing this. You might have perhaps an admin person just checking the work of Peter. But everything at the moment is going through this Action Centre or this workflow system for the tax advisor to see, because as we said earlier, we don't trust Peter. Dave and Andy have said Peter knows pretty much everything that a junior tax assistant needs to know, but we don't trust them at the moment. So everything's coming through. But on the top of that middle pane, you can see confidence thresholds for OCR and extraction. So the practice can change those thresholds and let certain documents go through, like things like P60s, which are dead easy for Peter to do and generally are digitized. That information can be extracted and go straight into the tax return. And there is an option, as Andy mentioned as well, to do the husband and wife joint accounts sharing through here. And once all of the data has been validated by your tax advisors, in the background, Peter will then load up CCH Personal Tax, and he will store the documents into the appropriate section within CCH Document Management, and he will then open up the tax return and start posting the data. And when Peter posts the data, to ensure we get good data quality within CCH Personal Tax, he will look for existing records from previous years. So he won't blindly create a new record for, in this case, dividends are on the screen for a particular company if it already existed. He will use that existing record and just append a value for the current year. So over time, you'll really get good quality data, because I imagine some staff at the moment do take shortcuts and just literally just create new records every time. But I hasten to add, or emphasize, want to emphasize at this point that this is all happening in the background on your servers, either on premise or in the cloud. You will not see this happening. You will know it's happened through the Action Center, that the data has been processed, but it all happens in the background. And Peter is working typically about 5 to 7 times the speed in terms of processing this data into CCH document management and CCH Personal Tax than the average tax advisor. So hopefully that gave you a really good feel for how Peter will slot into your team. I'm just going to hand back to Andy on where we are currently with in-scope documents for 2023, but importantly, where we'll be for 2024, when the majority of CCH customers will come on board.
Yeah, no, thanks, Dave. So what we wanted to ensure was, for this year, we wanted to keep the scope really tight. So it's, the employment income, interest in banks, income from UK securities, pensions, all the things on the left-hand side are all within scope. What we pretty much delivered the things on the right. However, they are a lot more complex. They are going to be coming in 2024. And we've got a research and development team that are busy working on phase 2 of this project. But as I mentioned, things on the left are what we wanted to deliver 100% correct in year 1, and then we'll move into the even more complex areas in year 2. So we've got a couple of questions just before we move on. So one from Lisa. If you use software like CCH Tax to import dividend info into CCH, will Peter deal with this, or will the tax advisor have to deal with it?
So currently we're not looking at CCH Tax, but that's pretty much is an automated routine. But Peter could potentially deal with that. We are working currently on the ability to not necessarily just pull out summaries from portfolio information that's been provided, but actually do line by line postings as well into the software. So in answer to your question, Lisa, Peter can definitely deal with it. It won't necessarily be within the standard product, but the way the product will evolve is firms have got the option to engage with us and create literally little bespoke add-ons to Peter to deal with particular scenarios, if that scenario is a common occurrence. What you do need all the time is some volume around the work you're going to be doing. So generally speaking, the answer is yes. And then we've got another question, Andy, coming in.
Yeah, so the question from Stuart is really how it deals with emails, and I think the next slide will demonstrate that. So I'll just go through the next couple of slides, and then we'll come back to the final question with Josephine. So the question was around how it handles emails. So this is an unstructured email coming in to a system, to Outlook, and what you can see is it's extracting information straight from the email. And we'll just go in a little bit more detail here. So bear with me. So this was an email came through with a bit of chatty narrative, but having a great holiday. Mentions Tesco's dividend, and then it also mentions 2 bank accounts. One which has a bank account number, and the other one which is a joint bank account. So using the advanced AI that we have implemented for the solution, it's able to extract the account information. It can see the currency, and by default, joint status is false. Whereas in the second bank account, there's no bank account number, so it's null. it knows it's Citibank, and then it's identified it's within dollars, and it's a joint account because it mentions I share with my wife. It also managed to pick out the gift aid and the dividend, but we just wanted to demonstrate the bank interest just now. And what that will do is that will pass it back to Action Centre for review. And if say that you've already got the source information from, say, a bank interest, it'll know that that system's already within CCH, and it will say, look, we've already got that information. So it will deal with duplicates as well. So lastly, really want you to show...
Actually, Andy, can I just add one thing to Stuart's comment there? The other thing, Stuart, is around what happens in practice. So Peter would not be reviewing everybody's inbox. What will happen is if you were, say, the person who received the client email, you would forward that to a sort of to be processed folder. So Peter will have his eye on this to be processed folder for that particular client. Because obviously I don't think anybody wants Peter going through their whole email box looking for stuff. So that's how it will work in practice. You will forward emails in there. So your second part of the question, if there are strings of emails, Peter can deal with that. And as we talked about earlier, this is probably quite pertinent as well, is Peter will also be looking for duplicates. So if that Tesco's dividend, for example, would come in through a certificate earlier in the year that the client had just sent through, and then 6 months later he's now sent you this email talking about the same dividend, that would go to the Action Centre before processed, and it would say, look, I've already got a Tesco's dividend for £2,000 in this personal return. Do you really want to process another one in there? Words to those effect. So it does some, as you said, does some key checking for dupes, and it does some fuzzy logic in there as well. So it doesn't have to be an exact match. It will push back if it thinks there is a potential match.
There's a few questions around foreign income. As I mentioned, that is going to be a phase 2 project. But what it will do is within an investment portfolio, it'll extract all the information that it can work through, and then it will highlight the areas for manual review and put it into a folder for easy access to your tax advisors, telling them exact page that they need to refer to review the overseas income.
And I believe and Andy, I believe it will be doing the conversion to GBP as well.
Yeah.
So it will take the dollars and convert them into pounds, etc.
Yeah. A technical question, is it cloud or server hosting? So what it is the bot resides within your infrastructure, but it is cloud orchestrated. So it's got a cloud orchestration. It's everything split by tenant. So from a security perspective, nothing is shared outside of your organization. So it's all controlled, processed and done within your environment with a cloud orchestration. An interesting one, the cost structure, hopefully relatively straightforward. It's £30 per tax return, and that's for all of the licensing, the support and maintenance, and the only cost to yourselves will be providing the infrastructure for the bot to sit within.
There's also a question there about cross-checking data to third-party systems, be it a FTSE feed or perhaps a website or whatever. Out of the box, it doesn't do that as standard, but again, there is the potential for Peter to do that. In fact, we are doing that similar exercise with another client currently.
Yeah. So I've just got 2 more slides to show. Dave, will hand over for this. Apologies.
So I mentioned handwriting earlier, and we picked up an interesting example when working with a German firm of accountants. So this is from one of Peter's German colleagues, Stefan, who works in the payroll department of a German accounting practice. And the onboarding process into payroll is through a 3 or 4 page document that every employee completes, normally digitally, but there's still a significant percentage coming through handwritten. And Stefan can deal with the handwritten form and extract the information. And some of the handwriting on this particular form is probably worthy of a doctor's surgery, because you can only just about read it yourself. So Stefan's done a cracking job, but it does show one of the limitations in that this time Peter is, because it's handwriting, he's reading the form, and the form he's looking at the fields, and one of those fields the client has actually typed or entered his handwriting outside of the box, which means that date field of 1st of July 2023 through to the 31st of July 2023. If you look at the data entry form, it hasn't picked up the whole data. So that would be a validation thing that would either be picked up by the payroll clerk, or Peter would identify it as an incomplete information. And in this particular instance, what Peter is doing, as well as processing the form, he's also pushing back on incomplete fields. So whenever a form comes in and the 35 fields in this case are not complete, if there were 4 outstanding, Peter would automatically respond to the client, identifying the 4 fields and asking for the data to be resubmitted. And that would go on until we've got all 35 fields. But the key point here is Peter can make a good fist, if you like, of doing reviewing forms that come in, perhaps P11Ds and P60s that are handwritten. It really just needs a bit of structure around the document, and Peter should be able to read it.
So a couple of more questions. One of the points was around how does Peter handle this workflow? So the trigger of getting Peter to start, what we've done with our 3 clients, and this is the way that it will work in practice, is within your document management system and the client, you're going to have a folder to be processed, and simply drag the income documents into that folder, and that's the trigger for Peter to get to work. So there is an initial manual review to go, we're going to move this in for to be processed, and then it will go through, and once it's dealt with it and put it into the relevant section, it will then file it within your document management system under the relevant folder with the right naming convention. Another question. So if it's some information that it can't handle, could it be added to the working paper to keep everything in place? Out of the box, it is not doing that, but we are currently working with another client who we've identified that as an area that they want. So because everyone deals with their working papers differently, that is something that we can deal with, but it'd be on a one-off consultancy basis. So just to finish off, and we'll take more questions, but should a robot be your next tax advisor? What we are about is creating greater capacity to either produce more tax returns, or give you that ability to start doing more tax planning work, review work, and really sort of changing the model in terms of how you can deliver a better service. So we're all about giving back time. So allowing you to have that time to do that tax planning work. Increased accuracy. So again, bots won't make a mistake. It will be 100% correct every time, but we have got that review process in place. Only improving the staff satisfaction as well as customer satisfaction, and really hopefully making a big change to the bottom line. So thank you, and we'll just finish off with some more questions. If if you want to have a scan as well, and pick out some questions.
So there's a question around foreign credits and tax relief and double tax agreements. Currently, no. So I think we just need to go back to that scenario that Peter is a tax junior. So he's really just doing the sort of basic data entry, data collection, data classification. I think in the fullness of time, especially with the advances in AI, yeah, there are going to be changes that we make and advance Peter into from a junior into a tax senior. But at this point in time, just try and visualize that sort of tax junior position.
Another question just at the end there. Timescales around corporate tax. Yeah, it's an area that we are going to be investing in next year. I don't have a timescale just yet, but that is an area that we are going to be developing.
There's a couple of points around the tax advisors incorrectly advising Peter to do something, and is that going to impact the model? Only if there's a significant volume. It's very unlikely because Peter's been pre-trained using thousands and thousands of transactions. So it's going to have to be a substantially bad habit across the best practice for it to really influence any outcomes. And hopefully that wouldn't happen really in reality, because those bad practices would hopefully be picked up as part of the review before the return is filed. There's some questions around the gateway and the DTA and stuff like that. Those are areas that we're going to look at next year. We started doing it this year, but the firms we were working with were questioning as well, sort of, the reliability sometimes of the data and the availability of the data. But I think that will be an area to look at to cross-check information.
Jamie's just asked us to repeat the costings. So it's £30 per tax return, and that covers all the licensing, support and maintenance. The only area that you would need to cover is the provision of a server or desktop. If that's an area that you need extra capacity with, Walters Clear do have another joint venture with Hosted Desktop that we're working closely with, so we can provision servers on your behalf for a fee. For next year, the minimum volume is going to be 1,000 tax returns to be processed in the tax period. We will review that for the year after.
Okay, some other questions around Peter accessing investment management portals. Again, not out of the box, but we do already provide that type of service to other clients. So Peter can, not Peter, but the robots can go into portals, run information. Typically, those sort of things would be done overnight, and potentially, transform the documents as well into whatever working paper format is required at your practice. But that would be something we would sit down together and work out.
Yep, there's quite a few questions around the DTA, the revenue gateway. That's something that we're working on currently. It will be delivered for next year.
Yeah, there's a question around picking up the name of the client. I think Andy mentioned that earlier. Because of the risk of clients with the same names and not necessarily the unique client identifier on the document or on the email, what currently happens is the information is going into your document management system or document stores, Windows file stores, etc. So there's a push process that you will perform. So you will put data into a to be processed folder, and Peter will pick it up from there. It's just too risky with information coming in without identifiers. And we obviously don't want to process it against the wrong tax return or wrong tax client. So the admin team are still responsible for allocating documents into a folder from a client.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up here. Please do get in touch with your CCH account manager if you do have any further information. They will be able to provide it. And also, Dave and I will be available for questions. Steph, you can share our email addresses if anyone wants to get in touch. But yeah, I'd just like to thank you all for joining the session today.